Welcome back, team. Today is October the 3rd, Tuesday. We're starting a little late. I think at this point, I've been covering some more short calls pretty much across the board. Everything that we've had swing short on top percent gainers. We've got WE down another 21%. This thing just really ruined those short calls. Let me jump into the private client fund. We'll start with this one. I apologize. My throat is still a little bit sore. I've been drinking tea and honey. We'll do a quick recap and then we will be live again on Thursday. All right, we are pushing $196,000 of profit on the day. Plenty to choose from. Let's go to WE. Everything is 73, 74, 75, 83, 84, 86, 85, 87, 92% wins. I've got some more in the 70s, 78, 76, 76, 74. Pretty good. Everything, the lowest that I had in play was 250 short calls. Those just went out of the money today and they were sold while they were deep in the money over $5. Right? It's 50% sell off on the stock. A lot of these options are December, January, March of next year. They're 83% decay in, what are we at? 2 weeks? Pushing 3 weeks. Again, proper timing, really juiced to the upside. Then obviously a pretty heavy rejection and quick fade. Just continuation over the last week and a new crack today that got that last of those 250s out of the money. Those were all the way into March. They're 74% profit. Absolutely ridiculous. Really nice breakdown. Grateful every day. Stock is down 23% on the day, following withheld interest payments. This thing's a zero. Might as well sell some more 250s, but I've got plenty in play. If you want to do anything with it, I think you can still sell over the $250 to $3 mark. I'd go out a little bit farther to get some more premium and risk bounces. Obviously, everything's pretty crushed today, so you might watch for bounces the rest of the week. I don't think they'll get too much out of it, though. There's still room around the 250 to 3s. Those are wide now. Hold on. Yeah, they kind of widened out the spreads a bit. You can go into March. 250s. November 250s are a little tighter, but they're down 55% on the day. So you might leave orders out at 65 and 85 and see if you get fills on any bounces. Take a small start. Otherwise, there's plenty of other stuff to trade. You can also just leave an alert, see if we get a retest. Really nice. The YUMC equity position is almost -7%. I added a little bit this morning pre-market, just figuring we'd get that gap down. I kind of pulled a little, bounced back over 55s. I added some short equity. We still have the swing short calls that were built in on that push to 58. Now we're breaking that sideways support and closing into the gap, right? Just continuing to decay those as well. We're getting into 65, 77, 82% wins. I've still got some 5750s for January that are pushing 34%. That's going to be a first exit. Put the order out for 35. Some of the other IPOs are getting pretty big positions on the day as well. KVYO is top earner on the day. I told you that we had the alert out for 35s. I was definitely shorting back into that on any push. Wanted to see them push it into 35s, short it for rejection, and watch it roll over. That lesson is back in the vault. I also cut the clips and put it on X. You can search my username and KVYO. You'll see a couple videos on that. Obviously, did exactly what we wanted, right? There's that rejection of 35 and higher, and we are back to the lows on the chart. We'll see if we break down into new lows, but trying to hold that open week just over 31. Again, not a lot of volume on this. They're just trying to prop it as long as they can. No new buyers stepping in. Extra 17,000 on the day. Pretty decent. Cover a little bit more here. And add back. FSLR looking pretty good as well. Another one of the top positions on the day. We built in a lot over this 200 mark, pushing 215s. As we got our entries, I left each alert out. So you can see the alert at 213 was never retested. The alert at 195 was never retested. Sorry, 193 was never retested. And it's just been a slow fade along the lower band for really all month, all of September, right? So getting into new lows, continuing to progressively lock profit. Take some more out of the short call premium as well. Let me sort by that. 92% on short 200s. Got some in the 70s, 60s, a couple in the 80s, and 2 in the 40s. We'll continue progressively auto locking that profit. I had sold 150 calls while they were still in the money. Those are 73% for January. Up in this range at 200 and 215, I was selling 150 calls, looking for those to go out of the money within the next 6 months. We're almost 3 months in, and they are 73% profit today. As we go out of the money, I'll be locking some more on those as well. At this point, I think you can still sell anything over 175 to 185, but you are risking bounces and retests. As far as seasonality, we would usually see a hold through October and a push through November. But I think this was a little overblown on the year. So probably still try to close flat, maybe around 185. I don't think this is the bottom quite yet. There's not really any indications of a reversal, but we can watch as it sells to the downside and continue locking our profit. Once I feel like there's some bottoming, I'll probably consider selling some puts for the bounce. GameStop got a good hit yesterday. Ryan Cohen just disappeared in June. Got named CEO, was pulling the same stunt that he pulled with Bed Bath & Beyond. We saw this coming. We knew it was going to happen, so built in pretty heavy. We've been swing short all year, obviously, pretty much through the highs. You can go back into the vault, and there are multiple lessons with conviction shorts over 25. There were no tests of these breakout alerts, and as it went 25 and lower sideways, started to break down. You can see that rejection and fail. We were progressively locking profit through this entire move, watched the bounce back over 1750s and added in pretty heavy, and we've given up 15s here. This one's dead also. It's going to single digits over time. There's still room to bounce and chop around. Typically, we would see a run through October, November. That's based on previous meme years. So I think we'll see some divergence on that this year. And you can still look at selling 15 to 1750 calls. I'm going to leave an alert, a manual alert out if we get any type of retest. I really don't think we will, but they might be able to spike it. Pushing 14% on new equity average. I've got a bunch of 25s and 20s that are 70, 80, 90% wins and better. We'll progressively lock out of those. I'll probably sell some more at the 15 level. Let's look at January. Watch it this week for a bounce, and still pretty decent premium, over 200 a piece. They only lost 15% today. Factor that in or go a little bit higher. You can look at the 30 delta for the 20s. It's a little bit less premium than I usually like to collect. Probably split the difference and go for the 1750s, risking a push back into 200 on those. Beautiful. GTLB continuation as well. Again, we shorted into the bounces, attempting the breakout. We've seen fail, and we were watching over the last week for this bounce to add back over 45s into 4750s. You can see the rejection today, sold off from 46 into 44. Again, still just crushing some premium. My lowest strike is short 30 calls. Those are negative 9%. I'm going to add a little bit to those today. And we'll continue taking profit out of the rest of them. Short 45s for January, 37%. Short 50s for January, 46%. Short 45s for January, 18%. Got some others in the 10 to 20% range, and we'll just waiting for first exits. It'll probably be another week on those. Along with that, we have the fresh starts and the adds back to the core average on HT. Still chopping around the lows. This is tandem with our swing shorts on Coin, MSTR, Riot, Mara, everything crypto related, basically. We're getting into 35% first exits on the short $40 calls that we sold on that last bounce. I think you can still look at those and 37.50s. If it's a new start for you, January 40s are just about 300. I'm probably going to sell some more of the 35s into 585. If you want some faster decay, you can still go into November or December, 35s or 40s. I think either is valid. Obviously, choose the delta that you're comfortable with. You can also go to 45s into December and get around 100 a piece. 7 points out of the money. Right? Just super slow, choppy fade. There's potential for them to try to spike it, but I don't see anything sustainable across the sector or any news. Take a little bit more equity and add some back. And then we will, I've got plenty in play. Hertz, wow, this thing got wrecked again. 2 days in a row, we are pushing 27% on short equity. Just a lot of conviction on this too, right? We saw the starting of the fail at $15, built in pretty heavy on the short calls in tandem with CAR and Carvana across the sector. Obviously, we've also seen a lot of the EVs selling off and the legacy manufacturers selling off over the past couple of weeks. Everything contributing to that against Tesla, basically. 27% on short equity and a lot of 50, 60, 70% plus wins on the short calls. I'm not going to add anything at this point. It's pretty far extended on the downside on the lower band. We'll see if they are able to trap and try to reverse it. I'm going to leave one final alert at 1150s. Otherwise, we will continue to progressively lock profit as always. Laser tandem with the EVs that were swing short, getting some more continuation out of this. It is 23% on short equity. Ran out of short calls a while ago. I don't think we'll see that spike on the end of the year. Not really interested in putting more size on it, but it's been pretty decent fade from 750s and beyond. I averaged in through 550s, covering and adding back. That's the reason for the 22% on equity, just a new average. Speaking of MSTR, pushing 7% again on equity, cover a little bit and add back to that. Still a lot of inside chop over the last couple weeks. We saw a push into 385s, sell off into 310s, bounce back to 345s, and we're around 315s right now. My 380 short calls for January are 57%. I've got 390s for June. They're only about 19%. I'm going to add into those. And 480s for January, 36%. I'm going to take a 35% plus exit. Might as well take some more profit out of Netflix as well. Fast spike this morning, didn't really go anywhere. You can see that move from 380s into 395s, rejected on the day. It's a bit of an over-under push. Our last entries were before the breakdown at 415s. There was no retest on those ads into 420s. You can see as it failed 400s, we've just seen that slow fade into 375s. I took profit through 385s and 375s, waiting, thinking that we might get some curl and a bounce. It looks like they're at least trying to profit. There's probably room to make that attempt if the market and others are able to hold up over the next couple of weeks. But any pushback into that area, I'll look at adding some additional short calls. I actually have 335s that are deep in the money. They're 32% profit on short calls. Then I have the 430s from that high end, along with 420s and 410s, 36, 32, and 27% each. Really good breakdown. Our typical levels that we'll use for those who are new is a 445 rejection. You can see that fail. Then our target off of that was 415s, 385s. So you can see how clean those moves are, and just being patient, progressively getting those wins. Really good short fade, a lot of premium crush. I didn't do as many strikes as usual. I just went heavier on each strike with conviction. So pretty good. We'll continue locking profit there. And I haven't recapped NVIDIA in a bit. So we got that slight bounce. I said I would add into this yesterday. Where we did, we got a little bit of a rejection today. And again, it's that same 445 level, right? So you can see the last fail at this level, a pull into new lows under 415, the bounce back over, and that same rejection at 445s, which has sold off today, crushed some premium. A lot of my stuff is still from after earnings. Right after earnings, we were building in short over 485, selling the 500s and the 515s and the 505s. I have December 515s, 66% profit. January 500s, 56% profit. February 500s, 52% profit. March 510s, 48% profit. April 520s, 46% profit. And October 505s, 97% profit. All swing short calls, pretty heavy conviction, really decent size on that as well with Netflix. Looking good. A lot of good continuation. And we'll let it run. Overstock tandem also with HTHT and Master MSTR, pushing 22% on overstock equity. And then a mix of swing short calls, a lot of which are 80 and 90% plus. So short 25s for December, 87% profit. Short 25s for October, 97% profit. Obviously, we're 10 points out of the money at this point. Those were built on this sideways action, not expecting a bounce and recovery after that gap down. Just seeing continuous fade and progressively locking profit along the way. We started into Pinterest short. It's only been not even a week. Yeah, this spike into 28s. Then we shorted the equity and sold calls, 2750s and 27s. The equity since then, I did get some covers. I did add back on the bounce. I added a little bit more yesterday. Again, we're seeing that breakdown, right? 2750s rejected. We're into 2635s today. Typical levels that you'll see across the board. There's 2750 rejection and selling those calls all out of the money now. It's only been about a week, but they're decaying January, February, May, and June. January, 26% profit, February, 21%, May, 17%, and June, 16% profit. The good thing is these are all $1 or more out of the money, and obviously stronger pushes. There's still some room for some sideways chop. If they're able to hold it up seasonality wise, we would typically see a run. I think it'll be a little bit different this year. Roblox, Riot, Rivian, we've gone through all of those. Roku as well. We can do that one again. Kind of similar to Pinterest. Same timing, we've just seen some rejection and fade. I've progressively locked profit on this. Our main entries on the reload were over 85, shorting into 90s. There was no retest on that last alert that was left out at 92. The high bounce was into 90s. And after that rejection, we've sold off all the way to 65s almost. With progressive exits and adds back to core, I'm sitting with a 72.38 average, just about 3.8% on the short equity. I've also got short $70 and $60 calls. Those were my last ads. I still have stuff from the 85s and 80s that's getting into the 89, 90, 93% range. The most recent ads, though, were the short 70 and short 60 for January. Those are 28 and 14% profit. Still time and room to work with those or go a little bit higher out of the money. Some finals on Square. Finals on Tesla. I am going to sell some more TSLQ and some VIX. Tesla still chopping around. There's room for this to roll over. I think we'll try to hold sideways and potentially push into the end of the year. There's a lot of trapping in this area, and I think it'll probably just be premium decay on both sides. If we're not going too far, too fast to the downside, then I'm going to sell some more TSLQ and the short calls on that as well. And we'll just work with it that way. I'm also adding short to TSLY. Average down into that on this bounce. All right. Then at the same time with the semis, we also did USD short. This is the ProShares ETF for the semis. There's still some pretty decent premium on this as well. I think you can sell anything over the $40 mark 2 to 3 months out. They don't have any January. I'm going to go to February. You're working with a 55 delta at the 40 strike. If you want to go all the way up to 30s, you can go up to the $50 strike. I think it's all right to split the difference at 45s. Around 350 a piece with a 42 delta, pretty decent. Obviously, we've talked about all of those semis are going to need to run pretty hard in order to make this breakout. I just don't see much follow through on any bounces. I'm going to write a lot more of these today. I'll probably do 3 to 5 strikes all the way up into November and February. For November, you can go with the 34 delta, which would be the 43 strike, but I'm going to collect some more premium and go out to February. Kind of rebuilding that one. We're rejecting VWAP at this point. There's still room to try for it. And I had the alert out thinking we'd get a little bit stronger bounce into 41s, just not seeing it. So I'm going to add into it today. We'll see how it goes over the next couple weeks. All right, team. Any other tickers that you want to take a look at? Still have some well. We just continued adding into that. A lot of sideways action. Built-in equity core is 5.9% swing short. I think at this point, you can still look at selling some $85 to $95 calls. Out to January, you can get around 250 to 100. And I'm probably just going to go right at the money. 77.50s or 80s, depending on your risk tolerance. A little bit better premium. There's room for it to try to bounce, but we're just seeing this kind of wiki action on any bounces that rejects. Still is having trouble holding the low band, right? So not much breakout, a little bit of fade and continued rejection. Typically, we've got another month or so into November before it would usually try to bounce. I'll write some extra premium and let it decay over the next 3 to 4 weeks. As far as finals, still have swing short CAVA as well. This was also a new IPO, very similar to KVYO and ARM. These are 99% on short 45 calls that don't expire until October. Obviously, those were built in clear back here. You can see the alert that never retested for 51s. As we failed 50s and broke down, we got those 45s out of the money. Under 40s, I continued adding to the swing short equity and writing new calls. My last ads were into just under 35. We were looking for a bounce back over, which also never retested. We've been chopping 30s since the middle of September. A lot of continued premium destruction on this. I really don't see a bounce coming or any strong reversal. Similar thesis to KVYO. There's no buyers on this. Sell the premium, let time do the work, and don't worry about it. Finals on Crocs, NNOX, FTCH, Square, Rivian, Zion, AI, AFRM, GME, EBIX, ONON, SMCI, Peloton, MSTR, 4, Upstart, FI, FSLR, Roblox, Rivian, ARM, DE, Moderna, GME, Beyond, Overstock, LI, AMC, Riot, QS, Lucid, Cold, AAOI, Peloton again. All of those 90% or better wins. Airbnb as well. Take some more profit out of this and add back. We're pushing to the low band. We rejected 140s, failed 135s as a hold, just over VWAP. And I think there's still room and time on this. They might bounce it in the next week or so. Typically, we would see a spike through November. I think it's less likely this year. I'm going to continue writing calls over 135, 145 and let it chop around for a little bit. If it's a new start into January, leave room for a bounce because they are down a little bit on the day. You can go with the 37 Delta at 145s for over 650 a piece. I'm going to be selling right at the money because I've already got profit in play. If you want to look at December, 145s again, just over 475 a piece. Leave room for bounces over time. I think this will just continue to crush premium. I'm going to be taking some more profit on AI as well. We were looking for that downside fail of the low level into 23s. I think we'll get there today or tomorrow. Put some more orders out. We've recapped that one enough. It's also one of the largest positions in play right now, progressively locking profit. All right, last one's AFRM. 14% on swing short equity. We have exited and added back into VWAP. There was that rejection of 2250s. You can kind of see a gap over into 25s and then the fail and reject. And now we're below 20s again. Just continued progressively locking profit, adding back to core. I've got a lot of short puts on this still from the initial run. As it was flagging 15s, we sold a lot of puts 3 to 6 months out. Progressively took profit on those and started building into the short call and short equity position on our exits, right? So a long into immediate short, we're already getting, the full run up and more than 50% of the move down. Over time, this will be double the money for the same move, over 3 months, where most people would just buy and hold and wait and try to let it work. There's a lot of time in play that you can collect premiums and get paid, every single night, every single weekend. Those calls are decaying versus the only time that the markets are open, right? So short 25s into January, 59%. Short 20s into January, 38%. Short 2750 calls into January, 61%. Short 30s, January, 63%. Short 20s, February, 36%. Short 2250s, April, 32%. Looking good. Hope that helps, team. We'll be back live on Thursday. Message me throughout the day if you need anything else, and trade safe as always. Thanks so much. Have an awesome day.